This isn't a video about stats. It's not about rankings or how many slams he might win. It's about who Carlos Alcaraz is and why, even at just 22, he already feels like one of the most loved players in tennis. At this year's Wimbledon, he paused his match to help a fainting fan. He led center court in a standing ovation for Fabio Fognini, knowing exactly what that moment meant to a retiring legend, and whether he lifts the trophy again this year or not, he's already won something bigger. The crowd, the respect, the soul of the sport. Carlos isn't just playing for titles, he's redefining greatness with kindness. When Carlos Alcaraz first stepped onto Wimbledon's sacred lawns in 2021, he was still a teenager, still raw, still learning. And to be honest, he looked it. He beat Yasutaka Achiyama in 5 sets, but then got absolutely schooled by Daniil Medvedev in the second round. Straight sets, one-sided. It was a quiet exit, but not a wasted one, because even back then you could feel something. Not just in the way he played, but in how he carried himself. No tantrums, no drama, just a 17-year-old soaking up the moment, eager to grow, hungry to return. And return he did. In 2022, Carlos pushed through to the 4th round, only to run into Jannik Sinner, who beat him convincingly. But again, no excuses, no theatrics, just a handshake, a smile, and a look in his eye like, next time will be different. Spoiler alert, it was. Wimbledon 2023 wasn't just Carlos Alcaraz's coming of age, it was a statement. He arrived with confidence after winning Queen's Club. But most fans, and even some commentators, still wondered, could his clay court magic translate to center court? Could his explosive game work on slick grass? The answer came in the final, against Novak Djokovic, the king of center court. The man with a 34-match win streak at Wimbledon, and Carlos, he lost the first set 1-6. Brutal, but then something clicked. He edged the second set in a tie-break, snapping Djokovic's 15 tie-break Grand Slam streak. And then came that legendary third set, a 13-deuce heart-racing game that ended with Carlos finally breaking Novak's serve. The crowd lost it. This wasn't just tennis, this was warfare on grass, and Carlos didn't just survive it, he thrived in it. By the end, when Djokovic's final forehand hit the net, Carlos dropped to the ground. Arms open, eyes wide, he had done it. After the match, he said, "Beating Novak, winning Wimbledon, is something I dreamt about since I started playing tennis. That's why it's the biggest moment of my life." But it wasn't just the title, it was how he handled it. He didn't mock, didn't gloat. He shook Novak's hand with reverence. He gave credit to the greatest player of the era. And he thanked Wimbledon 2023 wasn't just Carlos Alcaraz's coming of age, it was a statement. He arrived with confidence after winning Queen's Club. But most fans, and even some commentators, still wondered, could his clay court magic translate to center court? Could his explosive game work on slick grass? The answer came in the final, against Novak Djokovic, the king of center court. The man with a 34-match win streak at Wimbledon, and Carlos, he lost the first set 1-6. Brutal, but then something clicked. He edged the second set in a tie-break, snapping Djokovic's 15 tie-break Grand Slam streak. And then came that legendary third set, a 13-deuce heart-racing game that ended with Carlos finally breaking Novak's serve. The crowd lost it. This wasn't just tennis, this was warfare on grass, and Carlos didn't just survive it, he thrived in it. By the end, when Djokovic's final forehand hit the net, Carlos dropped to the ground. Arms open, eyes wide, he had done it. After the match, he said, "Beating Novak, winning Wimbledon, is something I dreamt about since I started playing tennis. That's why it's the biggest moment of my life." But it wasn't just the title, it was how he handled it. He didn't mock, didn't gloat. He shook Novak's hand with reverence. He gave credit to the greatest player of the era. And he thanked the fans, his team, and his family. This was the moment tennis fans everywhere realized Carlos Alcaraz isn't just great, he's good, genuinely good, Carlos has already faced giants on this grass. He's beaten Djokovic twice in Wimbledon finals, once in a 5-set masterpiece, once in straight-set domination. He's battled Jannik Sinner, Holger Rune, Daniil Medvedev, all part of this emerging era. But here's the difference. Carlos doesn't just win, he connects. He has this Federer-like elegance, Nadal-like work ethic, and the early stardom of a young Djokovic, and yet he's none of them because he doesn't want to be. When asked about comparisons to the big three, he once said, "I'm not here to take over from anyone. I'm just here to make my story." And he's doing exactly that, in style, with flair, and with values that remind us why we fell in love with this sport. Look at any Carlos Alcaraz match at Wimbledon, packed crowds, smiles in every direction, kids with his name on shirts, older fans nodding with respect, people standing in the shade just to catch a glimpse. He gets standing ovations, not just for the win, but for the way he wins. Mats Wilander once said that Carlos reminds him of Federer, not because of the shots, but because of the crowd's reaction to him. And it's true. There's a purity to the way Carlos plays, the joy, the honesty, the humanity. Even when he made a slip-up during Euro 2024 by shouting "Vamos España" at Wimbledon and got booed by English fans, he laughed, apologized, and moved on. No ego, no drama, just Carlos being Carlos. I've followed tennis for a long time, watched the rise of Federer, the dominance of Nadal, the fire of Djokovic, and through every era, there are always the numbers, the records, the titles, the milestones, but every once in a while, someone comes along who makes you pause. Not because of what they've won, but because of how they make you feel when they win. Carlos Alcaraz is that kind of player. He brings joy into every rally. He brings respect into every handshake. He brings soul into every center court appearance. And somehow, even in the biggest moments, he plays like he's still that kid hitting balls on a clay court in Spain. That's rare. And it's beautiful to witness. There was something about the way he honored Fognini that stuck with me. Because in that moment, he reminded us that this sport, for all its pressure, its cameras, its expectations, is still human. It's still about mutual respect, about giving back to the crowd, about honoring the opponent. And Carlos didn't do it for clout. He didn't do it for headlines. He did it because that's just who he is. In an age where so many athletes are caught up in branding, stats, legacy chasing, Carlos is quietly building something far more timeless, a reputation for class. Whether he wins this year's Wimbledon or not doesn't change that. In fact, that's the point. Because Carlos has already proven himself, not just as a player, but as a man, we'd be proud to see carry tennis into the future. He doesn't yell at ball kids, he doesn't taunt opponents, he doesn't play mind games, he just plays tennis beautifully, fiercely, humbly, and more than that, he reminds us why we love this game. So, yeah. As a fan, I'm all in. Whether it's a 5-hour epic or a routine straight sets win, I'll be watching, because with Carlos, there's always more than the scoreline. There's a story, there's a spark, there's that feeling that you're watching someone who respects the sport, honors the crowd, and plays with heart. And I think that's the kind of greatness we need more of right now. Now, I want to hear from you. If you've ever smiled watching Carlos Alcaraz, if a single moment, like a point, a quote, a gesture, ever made you feel proud to be a tennis fan, drop it in the comments. Tell me the moment you realized Carlos was different. Was it the way he handled that marathon game against Djokovic? Was it how he consoled Sinner after the French Open? Or was it something quieter? A smile, a hug, the way he looks at the crowd? No moment is too small. This video isn't just for views, it's for us, the tennis fans who still believe the sport is more than numbers. Let's fill this comment section with gratitude for a player who's only 22, but already carries the poise of a seasoned legend. And hey, if you're new to Tennis Titans, welcome. We don't just break down stats, we celebrate stories, so hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and join us as we follow the rise of players who play not just with talent, but with heart. See you in the comments. tennis racket.